Hello. Special thanks to Ona Saber for sponsoring a 90,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. All the details in the pinned comment down below. Our story begins inside of a civilian transport en route to Naboo. Anakin and Padme are sitting across from each other in a common area. They're having a talk about politics and the life of a Jedi. Padme was inquisitive about what it was like to be a Jedi, and Anakin started telling her about the compassion and love a Jedi should technically be encouraged to share so they could actually be a good Jedi. It wasn't necessarily pertaining to the actual code, but Padme didn't need to know that. In the coming moments, Padme expressed how he had grown up on her, and he simply, without missing a beat or even hesitating, told her that she hadn't changed. She was exactly the way he remembered her in all of her dreams. Padme kind of shrugged it off. It was a little weird, but more or less she chalked it up to Anakin being nervous about the whole mission they were on. She understood that it could be stressful for him to be out here with her on his first solo mission. So with that in mind, she just kind of avoided the comment and changed the subject. There wouldn't be too many more of these little flare-ups for the rest of the time inside the civilian transport. Of course, that did change upon their arrival to the palace of Naboo. Everything was fine until one of the advisors referred to Anakin as a Master Jedi, and Padme corrected him, expressing that Anakin was simply a Padawan learner. There was no malicious intent with it. She was just simply suggesting that she'd be deciding where they'd be staying, not Anakin. For one, being that he was just a Padawan, and two, that it was their home world and she knew it much better than he did. There was no way for Skywalker to know that there was a villa far away from the city that they could hide out and stay safe at. Since the whole purpose was to stay safe from potential bounty hunters, she figured going to her home away from Theed would be best. But Skywalker was intent on interrupting her, which was far away from customs of Jedi. This wasn't the first time Padme saw this kind of thing from Anakin, and naturally she rejected it, which led them to her home in the beautiful valley. Outside the villa, Anakin would attempt to make a move that would very quickly be rejected by Padme. She didn't care for it, and then the following day they would not go to the fields and have a picnic. And Padme was very assertively clear that they were not going to play buddy-buddy. She continued working on anything she could while she was here. She was trying to get ahead in the Senate, and she kind of just stayed away from Anakin for the time being. Her sisters teased her about finally bringing a boy home, and even Padme's father warmed up to Anakin. But Padme wasn't biting it. She didn't care for his impulsive and even rude demeanor. It was immature in her eyes, and being that she was a senator, she didn't care for it in the slightest. Also, not for nothing, for being a Jedi, she figured that in the last 10 years, he would have grown up slightly. She felt that she should rescind her compliments to him about having grown up. It was fine to be interested in someone, but the way he was going about it was creepy and it made her uncomfortable, and she did express that beforehand. During the night, Padme could hear Anakin yelling or screaming in his sleep, and for the first time during their endeavor, it seemed as if there was some semblance of adulthood within him. But that very quickly was put away. Padme came out to talk with him in the morning as he looked over out across the river valley. She noticed that he was meditating or something and decided to leave him be, and when he asked her to stay, she turned back and asked if he was okay, which he quickly accepted and then told her that Jedi didn't have nightmares. She expressed that she could hear him in his sleep, and he turned around to tell her that his mother was in danger and he had to get to her. Padme was okay with this, being that she in the years since she was last on Tatooine tried to find and Shmi free herself. Padme never said anything about this to Anakin, and they left in Padme's personal ship to head towards Tatooine. Once they arrived, they were directed towards the Lars homestead, and from there, Anakin told the family that he was going to go out and look for his mother. Padme respected Anakin a lot for doing this, but all that respect would be stripped away when he returned. She didn't know what it was, whether it was the spite in his eyes or the hatred in his voice, but it scared her. It scared her to death. There was something wrong with Anakin Skywalker. He wasn't in the right mindset to be around anyone, let alone be a Jedi and have a lightsaber. When he told her that he murdered the Tusken Raiders without hesitation or mercy, and then continued without any hint of regret for what he did, say that he hated them, she couldn't see him the same way that she did beforehand. He was no longer a little boy that she knew from Tatooine. He was now a murderer. This wasn't Padme's defense of the Tusken Raiders. More or less, it was her disgust with the lack of humanity that Anakin showed. He proved that he was no better than a group of uncivilized maniacs. Of course, they were barbaric, but that's why they were raiders. But slaughtering them was against the Jedi Code and against her own code of ethics. She was a people's person. She actively saved people and protected them. What Anakin did was against all of that. Shmi was already dead. She couldn't be saved and ripped through all of them. The humanitarian within Padme couldn't see Anakin in the same way ever again. The next several hours would be strenuous, but it would have the entire battle of Geonosis coming and going, and the return to Coruscant after the beginning of the Clone Wars. Padme at the end of the journey expressed to Obi-Wan that she didn't want to be escorted home by any Jedi, and put in a formal essay of what she encountered on Tatooine with Anakin. She told Obi-Wan about what Anakin said, and the information was given over to the Jedi Council. Afterwards, Padme would return home and prepare herself for countering the war effort. On Coruscant, the Jedi Council would sit in session discussing the events that transpired on Tatooine. Master Quinlan Vos was sent out to Tatooine to scour the camp and inform them of what had actually happened, and see if Padme had indeed told the truth. Not that they didn't believe her, but they wanted to confirm everything before moving forward. As they quickly learned, according to Quinlan, Anakin tried to save his mother, and then he turned to the dark side, very clearly. While Quinlan was more of a rigid Jedi, he was even taken aback by the darkness distributed by Skywalker on Tatooine. His actions were heinous, and the Council had to come up with an appropriate approach to this. It was obvious that Anakin would be punished for his actions, but it was even more clear that Obi-Wan was not up to the challenge of successfully training Anakin Skywalker, and he would be punished as well. Obi-Wan was brought to the Council chambers, and the Council asked him about the actions Anakin committed on Tatooine. Obi-Wan told him that he was made aware of it by Senator Amidala before she left. They asked what he planned on doing about it, and Obi-Wan told him that he believed that his student wasn't ready to go to the trials. Instead, he was to continue training under him and prepare for the war. Mace Windu leaned back in his seat, and Grandmaster Yoda took a breath before telling Kenobi that he was no longer going to be Anakin's master. Obi-Wan was taken aback. He looked at the Council in disbelief. They said that while he wasn't being punished per se for the actions of Anakin Skywalker, it was extremely clear that he wasn't prepared enough to train Anakin to begin with. Windu added on to this and suggested that perhaps it was at the fault of the Council for believing that the student of Qui-Gon Jinn could train someone like Anakin Skywalker. The comment was especially backhanded, but with a new war beginning, after the Jedi tried to stop it from starting, nearly 200 Jedi dead, and Palpatine gaining more power than even they could imagine, this was the last thing the Jedi Council wanted to deal with. Obi-Wan asked what he was to do, and the Council said nothing. They would handle everything from here on out. He may be a teacher again if he wanted, but that was entirely up to him. The Council believed that he could be a good Jedi Master, just not a good one for Anakin Skywalker, and perhaps they should have seen that before it got to this point. Obi-Wan asked what would happen to Skywalker, and Plo spoke up, expressing to Obi-Wan that it was the business of the Jedi Council. Skywalker would be fine, but Obi-Wan wasn't in need of being privy to the information. Obi-Wan bowed and left the Council chambers in nearly tears. He felt so terrible. To be a Jedi, their legacy and their lineage was so incredibly important. Who trained you was essentially family to you, almost like an adopted child. For him to fail Anakin was like he failed his own son, and he was truly disturbed by his greatest failure. He didn't know where Anakin was at the moment, so it seemed he wouldn't be able to tell Anakin about it, though this made Obi-Wan feel worse about the entire predicament, because it seemed he was a legitimate cause for it. He didn't even know where his former student was to begin with. Obi-Wan walked through the halls to his room and started to meditate, being that it was the only thing he could think of doing in such a time like this. The Council continued discussion about young Skywalker, while he was on the other hand on the other side of the city with his good friend, the one person who understood him more than anyone else. Palpatine was talking with Skywalker, and they were reflecting on the past couple days. The Chancellor and Anakin were walking around the room, and Palpatine told Skywalker that perhaps having revenge was what was best, whether it be against the Tusken Raiders or against Count Dooku. Anakin got flustered, looking down at his golden hand and then back up. Palpatine told Anakin that he was the wisest and most powerful Jedi he'd ever met. His time would come when his adversaries would see it. Anakin expressed frustration and anger, and his tangent moved further onto the slaughter of the Tusken Raiders, to the fight with Dooku, and how he wished he could have killed Dooku the same way he did the Raiders. Palpatine continued to poke the bear, while continuing to come off like the wise mentor who was trying to help. Palpatine asked Anakin what was hurting him so badly, and while Anakin had mentioned the death of his mother and the loss of his forearm, Sidious knew there was more. Anakin knew that Palpatine knew something, but he was actively trying to avoid saying anything about it. But the time came and Anakin told Palpatine the truth, that Padme outright rejected him. As a comforting father would, Palpatine told Anakin that it was nothing to worry about. Rejection was natural, not everything had to be perfect. And then Palpatine delved into Anakin's emotions by turning him against Padme. He degraded her and dehumanized her for the sole purpose of getting Skywalker to go further and further into the dark side. Palpatine told Anakin that it was probably for the best anyways. Amidala could be nagging or elitist. She was always against him and always trying to take down his policies. It likely would have led to conflicting interests for Anakin, which is something Palpatine wouldn't want for Anakin. Palpatine said that Padme was likely leading him on, and Anakin agreed expressively. That wasn't true in the slightest, because as it turns out, existing isn't leading someone on. While Anakin was going full mental case inside of Palpatine's office, the Council came to a conclusion. They had forced Skywalker to join a Jedi Master. While Jedi Master Inflo wasn't supposed to have contact with anyone on the Council, they did contact him and got his approval. He wasn't exactly fond of being contacted, but he was willing to accept the communication because it had to have been important if they were reaching out to him from Coruscant. When Anakin came back to the temple, he was brought into the Council chambers to talk to the Council. He at this point was unaware of anything that transpired. He, not for nothing, believed he was going to be promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight for his bravery on Geonosis. Oh, how wrong he was. The Council waited and they asked if Anakin had anything to share with them. Anakin was confused. He simply told them that he didn't believe he had anything to share with them. Master Yoda asked if anything peculiar happened on his little trip to protect Senator Amidala. Anakin shook his head. Master Ki-Adi-Mundi spoke up and said that the senator sent them a message. Anakin asked what it was about, and Mundi expressed that he would read it. And so, word for word, Anakin had to hear what Padme thought of him and his actions. Mundi read the council in the letter that they had already examined, and then, when he was finished, asked if Skywalker had any input on the scenario she was referring to. Plo spoke up from the other side of the room and said that they weren't going to just take her word for word as a fact, but they needed Anakin to tell his side of the story. There was an open window for Anakin to lie, but he didn't even think about it. Of course, if he lied, they would know, thanks to what Quinlan revealed. Anakin got emotional, told them that what he was doing is what anyone should have done to those thugs in the desert. The council looked at Skywalker without speaking, and he should have stopped there, but he didn't. Anakin continued and said that they killed his mother. What was he expected to do? Plo Koon said that Anakin was supposed to persevere. That's what any Jedi should have done, and that's what Kenobi should have taught him to do. Anakin said Obi-Wan taught him plenty about perseverance, especially when it came to retelling the story of how Qui-Gon was lost. Anakin got flustered and demanded to know what he should have done instead. The council told him that he should have left. Anakin yelled back without hiding that darkness and told them that they weren't there. Yoda agreed, they weren't. But Quinlan was. Anakin was not forced into a situation to kill them. He was not forced to fight for his life. Anakin got even more flustered and demanded to know what their issue was. Mace told him that their issue was his severe disregard for life. Anakin threw his hands up, asking how that was his fault when he was killing the Tusken Raiders. Plo quietly spoke up, telling Anakin that he proved himself to be no better than the Raiders. He slaughtered a village of individuals, sentient beings. They might not be civilized, but it was a slaughter. Anakin told Plo that he wouldn't understand. He didn't lose anyone. The council all looked at each other in silence. Yoda spoke up and told Anakin that they had all lost someone. Some of them lost friends to battles, others to assassinations, and many more to simply death. Quite a few of them lost people to the dark side, just like Yoda did Dooku. The Grand Master said that the difference is they did not seek revenge. If it was an assassination, they brought the bounty hunter in, but they did not kill him. Anakin got even angrier and told him that this was different. The Tusken Raiders could not be brought in. Mace asked Anakin to tell him. Would his mother want him to kill them? Anakin lashed out and ignited his lightsaber, and then stopped. He looked at the council members, who all reacted by putting their hands on their belts and preparing to get up. In case Anakin did something rambunctious, of course. Anakin stopped. He didn't move. His skin turned pale, and he realized within a split second that he could lose everything. Mace asked Anakin what he was going to do. Was he going to kill him? Anakin looked at Windu. Silence filled the air, and Mace said it was truly a shame. Anakin could have very well been the best of the Order. However, his failure to see past himself was his greatest failure. Windu put his hand in front of him and told Skywalker to hand him the lightsaber. Anakin gripped the blade a little harder, his skinny metallic hand holding onto the weapon, and then releasing it and deigniting it. Anakin walked forward and placed the weapon in Mace's hand. Windu leaned back and put the weapon on his seat. He told Skywalker that he'd be going to the River Moon of Aldolim. There he would begin a new path. Anakin asked about Obi-Wan. Mundi spoke up and said that it was clear based off Skywalker's attitude that Obi-Wan had failed as a Jedi Master. He was being stripped from the title, and he would have to start over. Not that Obi-Wan was an actual master, but Kenobi was just simply a knight again. Anakin felt a terrible guilt wash over him as he realized what his actions caused for Obi-Wan. No wonder he hadn't seen Obi-Wan since getting back to the temple. Anakin asked what he would do without his lightsaber. Windu told him that there would be no need for the weapon. Yoda told Skywalker that a vessel inside the hangar bay was waiting for him. He would take that ship and it would take him to Aldolim. There he would meet Jedi Master Kirak Inflo. Before Anakin left, he asked the council why they hated him. Windu looked at Anakin and told him that no one hated him. They didn't trust him, and he proved them exactly why they shouldn't trust him. If he wanted to try and get their trust back, then he'd have to earn it. Yoda told Anakin to have the Force be with him on his journey. Skywalker would walk defeatedly to the Jedi hangar bay. He didn't see any Jedi he really knew on the way, and once he entered the ship, he thought about going to the Chancellor and talking to him about what had just happened. But that wouldn't really work in his favor. The ship automatically lifted off the ground and piloted itself away. The Council wasn't dumb enough to let Skywalker plot his own course to the planet. Skywalker got upset, but he just decided to wait it out. When Anakin eventually did arrive on the planet of Aldolim, he walked out and looked at a small structure. In front of the structure, there was a man, without a shirt over his back, meditating. He was floating in the air and there was rocks spinning around him. There also seemed to be some sort of holocron. Skywalker stepped forward cautiously and asked if this was the Jedi Master he was supposed to meet with. Anakin, by this point, had forgotten the man's name. Master Inflo slowly floated to the ground and stood up, turning around and opening his eyes. He looked at Anakin and got a good idea of the individual he was working with. Master Inflo said that Anakin had a lot of darkness surrounding him. Anakin asked what that was supposed to mean. Inflo told the young Jedi that he wasn't carrying a weapon for a reason. Anakin pouted and said that the Council stole it from him. Inflo said that the weapon was meant to be his life, but that was not what made a Jedi. To have a lightsaber was an honor, but a lightsaber did not make a Jedi a Jedi. Inflo suspected that Anakin had a good teacher, however he was neglectful of some of the attributes that Skywalker displayed on Tatooine. Inflo turned around and said it was a shame that he slaughtered the Tuscans. Anakin asked what that was supposed to mean. Inflo didn't say anything and he just waved his hand forward and told Skywalker to look over the edge. Anakin walked forward and looked down. There was a small village. Inflo pulled his lightsaber with the Force and ignited his lightsaber. Anakin looked over with a shocked expression. Inflo held the blade out to Skywalker and told him to take the weapon, so he listened. Anakin held the emerald blade and examined it. Over the hum, he heard Inflo tell him to go into the village and kill every single person down there. Anakin felt a wave of shock fall over his body. He asked what the Jedi Master meant, and he told Skywalker again to go down to the village and gut every single man, woman, and child. Burn the village down. Anakin shook his head, and he said he wouldn't. Inflo asked why not. Skywalker told the crazed Jedi Master that they didn't do anything. Inflo smiled and said, "Oh, but they have." As he pointed to Skywalker down to the village, he pointed at a man and said that he didn't care for his family and slept with people behind his partner's back. He then pointed to a woman and said that she was a thief. Not a big-time thief, but she took a watch that belonged to an elder man. It was invaluable to him, because it belonged to his dead wife. The thief would get 50 credits for it. Inflo pointed to a child and said that while the child hadn't done anything yet, he would when he grew up. He would probably kill someone, but you wouldn't have to worry about that if you killed him. Inflo then turned and looked at Anakin in the eyes and told him to do it. Kill them all. Skywalker hesitated, and then the weapon lowered to his side, extinguishing and dropped it to the ground. Inflo asked why he did that. Anakin looked at the Jedi Master and said he didn't know. He just couldn't do it. Inflo nodded his head. He expressed that he was right, because he couldn't. He told Skywalker that he wasn't evil and that he wasn't cruel, but his actions alluded to a future of which he could do much more than what he did on Tatooine. Inflo asked if he would like to throw that particular future into the faces of the innocent. Anakin shook his head. Master Inflo then asked Anakin if he could feel the darkness rising in the galaxy. Anakin nodded his head, and listened as Kirak told Skywalker that the Force surrounded every living being, but Anakin already knew that, because at the center of the rising darkness was that one who wished to upset the cosmic balance, and on the exterior of all that darkness, there was Anakin. Skywalker was taken aback, but Inflo continued, saying that Anakin was in servitude to that one man in the middle of the picture, the individual who is willing to destroy everything for their own personal gain. The Jedi call him a Sith. Political people call him a demagogue. Others would say the Angel of Death. Anakin said he wasn't serving anyone. Kirak told Skywalker that's what the individual wanted him to believe. He wanted Skywalker to believe he was in control of his own destiny, when in all actuality he was simply serving a power that he would never meet. Master Inflo said that the chances are Skywalker hadn't come across this particular individual yet, but if he had, then their nails were digging into him. It was only a matter of time until he looked at the village of people down there and slaughter them for no reason, other than he just simply couldn't. Now did Anakin want that? Skywalker shook his head. He told the Jedi Master that he didn't want to hate. He didn't want people to fear him. He wanted to help people. Inflo told him that he would learn his lesson, but to learn such a lesson, he must be willing to resist the pull from things that he might not understand. Anakin nodded his head and told the Jedi Master that he was willing to do whatever it took. Inflo acknowledged this, and then turned around telling Skywalker that they had a long journey ahead of them. On Coruscant, Obi-Wan was beginning his second attempt at being a Jedi instructor by taking Ahsoka Tano on as his own student. She was fairly young for a student, not quite the age of Caleb Doom, but still young. They'd be serving in the war together. Sidious, on the other hand, was curious as to where Anakin went. He could feel him slipping into darkness and then into light. So, Sidious did what he did best. He reached out to the Force. As Sidious began to realize that Anakin not being with Padme might actually make his job harder. With Padme alive and with Anakin, he could have played off it, and now he needed to make sure Anakin found something to turn against. But Sidious would work his dark magic and twist Anakin's feeble mind into his tool of darkness. The Sith would rise and the Jedi would go extinct. Just one more step to the massive plan. After Anakin's first day with Inflo, he went to sleep in the only available place to sleep, outside. Master Inflo didn't sleep inside the monastery. He preferred the outdoors. As he explained to Anakin, he had taken the Barash vow, and he was out here so he could partake in a journey in the Force. He was separating himself from the politics of the Jedi Order and allowing himself to feel through the Force unlike ever before. Anakin was somewhat interested in Kirik's journey out here, but the moment he fell asleep, his mind began playing games on him. Anakin's tossing and turning was enough to get Kirik's attention, and so he used the Force to look into Skywalker's mind and noticed that there was something inside of there. Instead of a Force vision of everything he feared most, he saw a face painted inside of Anakin's mind. It wasn't Anakin's face, but it was hidden under a hood and a dark shadow. He found this peculiar until the shadow vanished, and Anakin's tossing and turning disappeared with it. Kirik realized that someone was messing with Skywalker, and that someone, very similar to what he had previously said about the one individual at the center of all of it, seemed a lot more realistic than not. Of course, to Inflo, there were plenty of bad people in the galaxy, but his idea or imagery was that all their dark deeds were interconnected back to the Dark Lord in some way. It seemed that for Anakin it was literally true, as this brooding individual was trying to take advantage of Skywalker when he was most vulnerable. This did leave some more concern for Inflo, mostly because he knew that trying to sleep would be extremely difficult. If this dark presence entered Anakin's mind again, then perhaps he could turn Anakin into a killing machine. When the morning came around after a restless night, Inflo waited for Skywalker to wake. When he did, he asked him about his sleep. Anakin admitted that he didn't dream much, though when he did, the dreams were often chaotic. Kirik asked if he had dreams before the death of his mother, and Anakin admitted that he did. He wasn't exactly ready to explode, but Anakin was more or less calming down from the previous couple of days. There was a sense of betrayal or even a sense of embarrassment for his actions. Anakin said that he felt as if he made the wrong choices on Coruscant and perhaps he was facing the consequences of his own actions. Kirik asked where this was coming from, and Anakin shrugged his shoulders. He said he didn't feel like a god here. He only felt like a human. This got Kirik's attention, and he asked what the young Jedi meant. Anakin sighed. He said he could be very appreciative or upset for what Obi-Wan did to him. Anakin a lot of the time wasn't appreciative as he should have been for Kenobi, and he felt truly terrible for having set Obi-Wan back so far in his own journey. He recognized that his actions, aside from the ones on Tatooine, could affect those around him, especially the ones he cared about. He scared both Padme and Obi-Wan out of his life because of his impulses, and it hurt him. Inflo asked Skywalker who made him feel like a god, and Anakin simply said that it was inside the temple. He was known by everybody. Outside the temple, the Chancellor always welcomed him as an audience with great praise and even pride. Master Inflo found this a little weird, but interesting. Well, the Jedi Master decided that they would begin working on Skywalker's journey. When it came to an end, perhaps he could feel what a sense of completion was, and then he'd be ready to return home. Anakin nodded his head and followed the Jedi Master. The main purpose of this journey was to help Skywalker. While the Council had their fair share of reasons to want to punish Skywalker, especially since he always got a free pass, they wanted him to succeed. Not a single member of the Council wanted to see him fail, so they were hopeful about the potential work that Inflo could put in. The journey for the two Jedi would take them across the planet into the forests. Before night came around, they set up a small camp. Master Inflo asked what Anakin was most afraid of, and Anakin didn't have a real answer because he wasn't entirely sure at the moment. He lost everyone in such a short period of time. His outburst of the council chambers was all of his rage, and now he was left with sorrow and the consequences of his outburst. So, Kirik asked Skywalker if he was afraid of himself, per se. Anakin kind of just nodded his head, as that seemed like the most appropriate answer. The Jedi Master suggested that Anakin had to learn from himself so that he could no longer fear himself. Anakin said he didn't want to just hurt those around him, but at the same time he wanted to be the best of the Jedi. Master Kirik shook his head. He told Anakin that there was no best of the Jedi. They were all just Jedi. Some Jedi were like a trickle, others a stream, a river, or even a flood. Anakin asked what all that meant, and Kirik laughed a little bit, saying that Anakin must have not paid attention during class. The Force wasn't about being stronger or better than anybody else. To use the Force or even be a Jedi was like opening a door. Some members had their doors more open than others, which allowed the Force to flow through them in a certain way. Anakin suggested in a moment of arrogance that it seemed like the Council was jealous of him. So why would they be? Kirik asked the question back to Skywalker. Why would the Council be jealous of him? Anakin shrugged his shoulders, suggesting that it was because he'd become more powerful than any of them. Kirik looked at Anakin and asked if he really thought that the Collective Council wanted to become more powerful than him. With centuries worth of knowledge under their belts and the power within their hands, a power that not a single one of them cared about, why would they? Kirik asked Anakin if he truly understood what it meant to be a Jedi. Anakin said he didn't, so he was asked to explain it. Anakin said that being a Jedi was saving people and using one's power for good, and Kirik asked if Skywalker knew what the key to being a Jedi was. Anakin said questioningly, the Force. Kirik nodded his head. He told the young Jedi that the purpose of being a Jedi was to connect oneself to the Force, and as they continued their journey along their life, they could use their power for good. It just depended on where they were in their lives. He suggested that the purpose of the Jedi was to inspire those around them, to give them hope. Anakin was so close to understanding what it meant to be a true Jedi, but his ideals on what being a true Jedi were twisted. Kirak asked Anakin where his delusions of grandeur came from, and why he was so focused on becoming the best. Anakin said that the Chancellor often told him that he was the wisest Jedi he'd ever seen, or that he'd become the best of the Jedi. It all clicked. Not that Kirak believed there was anything wrong with the Chancellor, it more or less was that he believed Anakin should not be listening to a politician on advice regarding on how to be a good Jedi. Anakin nodded his head. He saw where he messed up. As the night went on, Anakin went to sleep before Kirak, and the Jedi Master seized the moment, taking everything he learned about the Force up until that moment and using it to see if he could look into Anakin's mind and locate the individual who was pushing Skywalker further. Inflo was inside of Skywalker's mind for hours until he saw Anakin enter a dream. It was Skywalker and the Chancellor. They were talking, just as they always had, and Inflo watched this figure tell Anakin that he was the greatest of all the Jedi. Anakin smiled with joy, and the man told Skywalker that he was greater than any Jedi, and without them he'd be more powerful than any of them combined. Anakin was stuck in a tug-of-war between two forces, and he let out a terrible scream that shattered the dream into a void. Inflo watched, and then he felt the presence of the figure. The individual could feel the darkness from Skywalker, and it was so overbearing that he didn't even notice that Inflo was present. The Jedi Master skywalked through the dream without ever being noticed and snuck into Palpatine's side. He could see everything, and then Sidious noticed. Turning around, he was blasted in the face with the Force. His hood was thrown from his head. When Sidious looked back, Inflo was missing, and Sidious was so confused. He looked around and then back to Skywalker, who was in the void of his mind with him. Anakin began to, in a sense, lucid dream, and asked what Palpatine was doing here, as he helped him up. Sidious realized that he was somehow stuck, but not stuck. He couldn't leave by his own power. This was something else. He looked around and Anakin asked him why he was wearing such dark robes. Sidious looked at Anakin with his true self showing, and Skywalker stepped back, seeing the yellow eyes of the Sith. Sidious told Anakin not to worry. He'd find the individual responsible for this and free them both from their solitude. Anakin nodded his head and watched the Chancellor wander around. Anakin just assumed he was dreaming and didn't really think anything of it. Sidious was so confused. He was trying to break out of the trap, and when Skywalker questioned him again, Sidious snapped and turned back with rage in his eyes, and Anakin saw the man for who he really was. Skywalker was taken aback at this hostility and asked where this was coming from until Sidious was dragged out of the dream. Anakin woke up with a shock and he looked over at Master Inflo floating in the air above the ground. Anakin asked what was happening, and Inflo slowly pressed his finger to his lips, suggesting that Anakin be silent. So Anakin listened and tried doing what the Jedi Master was doing. Feel through the Force. As it turns out, Kirak was bridging the gap between the dream Skywalker had and the Council. The entire sequence was set up to make Anakin more vulnerable to Sidious, and it allowed Kirak to hone in on Sidious's exact location. When Kirak used the Force to knock Sidious's robes off, that wasn't actually Master Inflo. That was his location being revealed to the Council. Him being trapped was just an illusion that Kirak put onto him. It put Sidious into a position where he felt like he was within the dream, when in all actuality, it was just the Force itself projecting itself onto Sidious. The dark side may have been powerful, but nothing was more powerful than the Force itself. And as an ally of the Force, Kirak utilized it to perfection to ensure Sidious stopped torturing Skywalker. Inside of the industrial sector, Sidious was jumped by the Collective Council. He didn't even have a chance to fight. The irony of their actions against Sidious is that they were acting similarly to how Skywalker did with the Tusken Raiders, though they actively just saved the galaxy. On Aldolim, Skywalker woke up in a weird location. It wasn't the forests. He was in the waters, and he was next to a monastery. The Jedi Monastery. Anakin asked what happened. Kirak told Skywalker that he'd just taken his first step into a larger world. Anakin was so confused. He said he remembered going with him into the forest. Kirak just simply exclaimed that Anakin was allowing what comforted him to guide him. The two of them were able to find Anakin's peaceful place in his own mind. It was seemingly in the forest, surrounded by life and peace. Anakin asked if he had mastered the art of the Force, and the Jedi Master chuckled. He told Skywalker that he had much to learn when it came to mastering the Force, but he was on the right track. Master Kirak held his hand and helped Anakin out of the water. As Anakin stood up, all of his clothes were dry. There wasn't even a hint of dampness anywhere around him. Anakin was confused, but Kirak told him that the Force works in mysterious ways. He must trust that. Anakin smiled and nodded his head. Master Inflo asked Anakin if he would like to join him on his Barash vow. Anakin nodded his head. He said that he would also like to ask for one thing. He wanted him to kind of pass on a kind word regarding his master. He didn't want his actions to hold Obi-Wan back. Kirak said that he would, and he told Anakin that they'd begin their journey. Skywalker may have not been privy to it, but his actions led to the downfall of the Sith, and the actions of the One Collective Council were just a mirror to Anakin's own actions on Tatooine. There was such a radiant light that existed within Anakin, and when he allowed it to blossom, he stood at the pinnacle of the workers of light, just as Sidious did for those of darkness. The council was informed of Skywalker's choice and his request, and then Master Inflo cut himself back off from the Jedi Council and the Order as a whole. Anakin learned that he should cut himself off, and so he did from the Jedi Order. In 7 years, when he returned, he would learn of all that changed. His journey through the Force had him presented to the faces of Mortis gods and the spirit of the Bendu. Skywalker's presence in the Force was truly being fulfilled like it should, for the one who was destined to bring balance to the Force, that is. When Skywalker returned, he found Obi-Wan at the top of the Jedi Council and congratulated him for his ascension. Obi-Wan was grateful to see Anakin at the end of his bearish vow. One might ask about the Clone Wars and the lasting effect it had. The Jedi used their assassination of Sidious as a means to propel themselves to take control over the Senate. They locked the entire Republic down and forced Dooku and the Separatists into the debate room. Of course, it wasn't just that simple. It took a crushing early war defeat for the Separatists to get them into the talking room. It was a combination of the defeat of the Malevolence and the Battle of Christophsis, which came back to back of each other. It also didn't help that Toydaria, Tatooine, and a bunch of the other backworld worlds chose the Republic over the Separatist. It really showed the validity of the Republic versus the Separatist. It showed that people preferred the Republic over any rebellious group. The Jedi taking over the Republic was a saving grace, and their actions took down the oppression of the Clone War. The people of the galaxy initially saw the Jedi action and their takeover as hostile, but once the war came to an end, they were appreciative for the Jedi. Though appreciation is not why the Jedi did what they did. The war ended before the 4th month of combat, and with minimal casualties and war crimes. Dooku continued to be elusive as the people of Sereno ousted him from power for treating them terribly and allowing them to suffer while stealing from them. Dooku hid away on an old Sith homeworld until his eventual natural death, 4 years after the end of the Clone Wars. Anakin's return from Aldolim showed a much different person than the man who left, but the Council had long since forgiven him for his actions and behavior when he was last here, when he was nothing but an adolescent. Skywalker's great fascination with the Force led him becoming what a true Jedi was supposed to be. Despite the Council's interactions with the Senate, they hadn't changed their ways and actually became much more politically involved with the Senate. This didn't necessarily disturb Anakin, though. He became extremely invested in the concept of the Force, and as a master of the Force at this point, with a great part of this in due to the help given by Master Inflo, he decided to dedicate his life to it. While Master Inflo hadn't come back from Aldolim, the relationship between Skywalker and Inflo was as strong as any between a master and an apprentice. Ahsoka was already a Jedi Knight, and Obi-Wan was more than proved himself to be the ultimate Jedi Master. Skywalker was kind of disappointed when he returned to Coruscant. He didn't understand how the Jedi could be so intertwined with the Republic, but he did understand why they did it, because their actions allowed the Jedi to have peace. Though Anakin didn't want to be around the Order on Coruscant, his fascination with the Force made him realize how far their path from the Jedi had fallen, but he was not angry with the Jedi Council. It was more so a complete realization of what his path was. His bearish vow gave him everything he ever needed in life, and now it was time to continue that journey. Skywalker willingly took it upon himself to find a youngling and turn them into a Padawan of his own. The student was a young human, and he'd be the chosen one student. Anakin and his apprentice would go out across the galaxy learning more about the Jedi of old, which is what Anakin wanted to do. But a year into the training of his student, they made a course correction. A trip to Jedha had Anakin realizing that more needed to be done outwards, and he returned to the Council and requested that they use their power in the Senate to disperse the Jedi Order outwards. The Council liked the idea and wanted to know what Anakin was suggesting. Anakin believed a smaller temple or an outpost would be necessary, but the Jedi would have to be willing to serve if they went. The Council told Skywalker that they would put it in motion in the Senate and see if they could gather up a legion of clone troopers who still served with the Republic. While most of the clones had left the army and started their own lives, there was still a collection of thousands of clones who served in the Republic, just to put down rebellions and help maintain order and all. It was automatically approved by the Republic, and they, along with Skywalker and his student, dove headfirst into the Outer Rim. Because the crime families had nothing to do with each other, the Republic was able to dismantle what they had. The Jedi outpost here in the Outer Rim was the forefront of the Jedi Order, and Anakin had so much respect within this order for taking the Barash vow. And as for the people inside of his particular outpost, they took a lot of his lessons to heart, just like his student did. They, in their own way, took a collective Barash vow, in a sense. It wasn't quite the same because they were still connected to the Order, but they became a lot like Skywalker. They wanted to feel the Force in a way that Anakin did, and all the information Anakin learned on his own and the lessons he received from Inflo. With the redemption of the Outer Rim and the ascension of Anakin Skywalker, the galaxy was able to finally set its sights on a new chapter of galactic history. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewu670, Azitano, Omar Abu Assad, Darth Nox, The Eternal Padawan, Johnny DeGuin, Sans the Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Calic, Youngling Slayer 66, Mathematics Studios, Anakin 003, Ford is Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, the man with 3 first names, Dark Saint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing. First button channel, smash the like button. If you want to see me mispronounce more names, go check out the Patreon. There's really cool stuff on it. Sith Clone Wars, we are finishing up. We are 8 episodes in, I think, right now. There are updates on there for that. Let's talk about the story real quick. So this is kind of literally like what if Kirak Inflo trained Anakin Skywalker, but it's not. The main thing I wanted to go with is like, I had a couple ideas, but I felt like the other ones were kind of too predictable, and I wanted to do something different, obviously, and I felt like Anakin kind of like lashing out at the council for what happened, and just kind of taking all of his anger about being betrayed and taking it out on the council would be interesting, like, to have that dynamic. But sending him to Aldolim to be with Master Inflo would be different, but also interesting. I think the polarization of what Inflo said to him on the first day would really kind of wake Anakin up, and I think that's all Anakin really needed, was like a wake-up call to be like, yo, like really think about what you're doing here. Like, would you kill this entire village? No. Okay, you're not a bad person. Let's work on that. And so spending 7 years is a long time, but it allows Anakin to have this amazing growth, and actually almost in a way start his own Jedi Order without starting a new Jedi Order. So I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.